one. Oh, hold on for a second. There we go. And a crane is coming, but that's okay because that's not stopping me for doing this video. So, anyways, as you guys probably know, one of the things you probably figured out by now that I do love the SCP Foundation. I subscribe to some channels that even talk about them. And while SCP Foundation is pretty interesting in itself, there's a couple of things that are so confusing that, stuff happens that, really confusing. Today, I'll show you one major confusing SCP, and that is this baby right here. Hold on for a second. So yeah, SCP-4319. So this one is interesting as it's called Just Girly Things by Girls for Girls. And again, this is actually a whole entire thing. And it's definitely a very interesting thing. So the website actually changes a lot to pink, and this is a stereotype of what you expect from a girl. Literally. And it reads a lot of gibberish, but pretty much it just tells you a bunch of stuff that's pretty interesting. That it really does hit the nail of interesting stereotypes. And while it's not the signature SCP page, we can give out some hint on what this SCP is, who invented it, and just how dangerous this SCP is. Now, the first thing we need to get out of the way, what is this SCP? Like, what's its containment? Well, its containment level or class is Keter, which we all know by now is the most dangerous thing in the planet. Like, it's literally Keter. There we go. Sorry, my thing is literally blinding. And about what we read, it's actually very interesting. So pretty much, it really does hit the core of what it's telling it, saying like stuff like, some girls don't think there are boys, but they're just super into sports and stuff, and still think they're true girls. Isn't that just dumb? And it really does hit the nail of stereotypical girl stuff. And it even got heart-shaped cookies and blah blah blah. And it does say, I'm trying to find it. Kid, Start liking boys. So what I do a lot is proper post. So. Oh yeah, it should say here, is once you visit our site, all additional info include home screen and lock screen phone will match up to the GP theme. Which is kind of bullshit because, boom. Although, unless you count that, but still, boom, nothing. Anyways, just a little treat to remind us how your girly nature. We can also give you new clothes to make it best to girl. You don't even have to worry about shipping and all that jazz. It can appear right on your body and in your closet. Yeah, so pretty much, this is where I was going for. But yeah, pretty much this whole thing is pretty much, as it even states down here, a mind-affecting SCP that pretty much, as you even saw from the title card of this video, turns you into a fucking girl once you get on the fucking site. And does viruses to your computer and then turns you into a fucking girl. By force. Now, it's still unclear how this works. I mean, heck, there's even a freaking quiz that goes really deep in how effed up it is. Like this. But it gets into more details on who could have created it. So first off, we have this. Fill in the bread with Girly, and it really does talk about girls talking about stuff until it gets very serious, where they start talking about a lot of things. Like, it really does hit the nail of how dark it gets. Like, I'm not going to go into details, but it really is just very interesting. To the point where one of the girls start really get upset and stuff. I know it's not really, I'm not doing a good job explaining it, but really the gist of this seems to be the very much origin of this thing, and it really is disturbing. What kind of make this SCP so interesting, like, even many people say SCP-3919 is confusing. This is more confusing because it doesn't even tell you what truly is the procedures of this thing. Which obviously even says here, depiction of abuse ahead, proceed with caution. And it really gets really dark. It really gets really dark, and I'm trying to show every single one of here. And it really does. Like, you can quickly go to the website yourself. I'll send a link down in the description. But yeah, but it definitely, the walls are pink. I'm so happy. Yeah, it really just shows pretty much shows that you know, Jess was brainwashed on this thing, which could explain the original post because it was put as Jess London, and she was brainwashed and she lost all her friends, and yeah, she became somewhat of this SCP, part of this SCP. Now, the other thing that's interesting is there's also something called Ella's Sweets, which was the same character, and it's pretty much what you expect of, you know, certain things. Now, I wish there was an article that really kind of hit the home on how serious this SCP is, but to make a long story short, this SCP will turn you into stereotype girl if you're on this site, and it will literally force everything on your site to be girly and stuff, and it's just plain weird. It's really a weird coincidence. But that's what makes this SCP to me so fascinating, because unlike most SCPs, you can actually read their entries and all of that. But this person, because there's a lot of people who makes these SCPs, went beyond and made literally a secret story where you actually have to go in, and it's like a mini ARG trying to figure out what the hell is this SCP and why it's so dangerous. Now again, sorry if this is literally a super short and kind of book for dummies explain of the SCP. Like, again, I highly recommend you guys check it out and try to figure out mostly. But again, just to sum it up on quick notes, this is SCP-4319, and it's a Keter class object. I think is a phenomenon or whatever. I don't know. And pretty much it's the reason why it's dangerous is because it turns you into girls. Luckily, this isn't real, but the girly things is also another reminder that just because your gender might be a boy or a girl, that doesn't mean you should not, like, you know, things from the opposite gender. Obviously, you guys know me. I'm pretty much a feminist and a motherfucker. I have freaking My Little Pony, and I even wear, like, girl stuff now. Like, not all the way girl stuff, because that would be crazy. But you guys know I'm a feminine as a motherfucker, and I know there's a lot of people out there that has different preferences, despite being, you know, a boy or a girl. And this SCP kind of hits home on why that thing is very dangerous. And yeah, it's pretty weird. It's a pretty weird, but this is actually my favorite SCP. But again, you know, hey, it's just what it is. But yeah, this is Foxcat with my explain video. And by the way, my other explain video, again, I'm gonna wait for a while. I won't make a guaranteed promise. I'll probably make the explain video on Friday or around that weekend, so that way I won't get too much nightmares. But still, we'll get to that break later, I promise. But I do want to make this quick because today I have another scheduled thing. But yeah, pretty much a simple explanation. If you guys like this, tell me if there's another SCP you want me to explain. If it's not too hard to explain. But yeah, this is Fox Guy, and I'm snapping out of here. And my screen is still not girly. Other than that, so bye.